The rain had been falling since morning, turning the red clay earth into rivers of mud that swallowed every step. The overseer rode ahead on his horse, his oilskin coat slick with water, not once turning back to see if the man behind him could still walk. Elijah's bare feet sank deep into the cold earth, his thin shirt clinging to his back, his body shivering with exhaustion and age. 73 years. 73 years of sun and chains, of orders and silence, of seeing the world through the eyes of someone who owned nothing, not even his own name until he stole it from a dream long ago. The horse stopped near the edge of a field, and the overseer dismounted, muttering curses about the storm. He looked at Elijah, his face hidden beneath the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. "You're slowing down, old man," he said. "Ain't much use left in you now." Elijah said nothing. He had learned long ago that words only fed cruelty. He stood still, rain pouring down his face, mixing with the salt of sweat and memory. His hands trembled from cold and age, but his eyes, still sharp, still alive, did not waver. The overseer spat into the mud. "You can rest here," he said with a sneer. "Storm will pass by morning, if you make it." He climbed back on his horse and turned away, the animal's hooves splashing through the puddles as they disappeared down the road. Elijah watched until there was nothing left but rain and the sound of thunder rolling across the empty fields. For a moment he just stood there, too tired to move, too proud to fall. He looked up at the gray sky, letting the rain wash the dirt from his face. Then he whispered to no one in particular, "Lord, you still got me here for something. Don't let me die without knowing what it is." He walked slowly, every step a battle between body and will. The fields were empty now, the harvest long taken, the land stripped bare like his own spirit. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the outline of an old cabin in the distance, half collapsed, forgotten by time. He made his way toward it, his legs trembling, his breath shallow. Inside it smelled of damp wood and dust. The roof leaked in places, but it was shelter, and for now that was enough. He sat down on the floor, back against the wall, and closed his eyes. The storm howled outside, wind pushing against the thin walls like a living thing. For a long while there was only the sound of the rain, steady, relentless, almost cleansing. Elijah thought of the people he'd known, most of them gone now. He thought of Sarah, his wife, taken by fever 30 years before. Of his son Samuel, sold down the river when he was just a boy. He thought of the overseer's words, "Ain't much use left in you now," and felt a strange calm settle over him. Maybe it was true. Maybe he had given all he had to give. But then, through the storm, came a sound he couldn't quite place, a faint cry, high and thin, carried by the wind. He frowned, listening. It came again, louder this time, unmistakable, a child. He pushed himself up, leaning on the wall for strength. The cry came from outside, beyond the cabin, near the trees that lined the edge of the field. Lightning flashed again, and for a brief second he saw something small moving in the mud. He didn't think. He just went. The rain hit him like knives as he stumbled forward, calling out hoarsely, "Hey now. Hey there. You all right?" The answer came as another cry, desperate and weak. When he reached the edge of the trees, he saw her, a small girl, maybe 6 or 7, soaked to the bone, shivering under a broken cart. Her clothes were torn, her eyes wide with fear. Elijah knelt beside her, his heart pounding. "It's all right, little one. Don't you cry now," he said softly. She didn't move at first, too afraid to speak. He reached out a trembling hand. "You hurt?" She shook her head, though her lips were blue. "Mama." She didn't wake up, she whispered. Elijah looked around and saw a few feet away the outline of a woman lying face down in the mud. He went to her, gently turning her over. The woman's eyes were closed, her skin pale. He didn't need to check long to know she was gone. He bowed his head for a moment, whispering something that sounded like a prayer. Then he turned back to the girl. "Come on now. We best get you out the rain." He lifted her carefully, his old arms straining but steady. She clung to him without a word, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt. Together they made their way back to the cabin. Inside, he wrapped her in his coat, rubbing her hands to bring warmth back. She looked up at him, her eyes full of something he hadn't seen in years, trust. "What's your name, child?" he asked. "Lila," she said, her voice small. "Well, Miss Lila," he said with a faint smile. "You safe now? Storm ain't gonna take you tonight." She nodded, her eyes fluttering closed as exhaustion took over. He sat beside her, watching the rain run down the walls. feeling something stir in his chest that he thought had died long ago. Purpose. All night he stayed awake, listening to the storm, keeping the fire alive. Each crack of thunder reminded him that life could change in a breath. But the sight of the small girl sleeping peacefully beside him reminded him that sometimes, even in the worst storms, grace found its way back. By morning, the rain had stopped. The world outside was washed clean, trees glistening, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. Elijah stepped outside, his joints aching, but there was light in his eyes. He looked at the sky and whispered, "So that's what you kept me here for, Lord?" He spent the next days caring for Lila. She told him bits and pieces, how her family's wagon had broken down in the storm, how her mother fell ill and never woke. She didn't speak of her father, and Elijah didn't ask. Some wounds didn't need words to be seen. He taught her how to make a small fire, how to gather water, how to listen for the birds that told when the rain would come again. She listened like she'd been waiting her whole life to be told she mattered. At night, when the world was quiet, she would ask him to tell stories. He told her about stars, about the ones that people used to follow when they wanted to find freedom. He told her about Sarah and Samuel, about love that doesn't end just because the world says it should. She would listen, eyes wide, as if each word built a new world around her. And slowly, without meaning to, Elijah began to believe in that world too. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, he sat outside with Lila, her small hand in his. She pointed at the horizon and said, "Do you think Mama's there, in the sky?" He looked at her, smiling gently. "I think she's right there in that light, watching over you. Same way Sarah watch over me." Lila leaned against him, sighing softly. "Then I ain't scared no more." He nodded, his throat tight. "Good, 'cause you ain't alone no more neither." For the first time in years, Elijah felt peace. The world had taken almost everything from him, but it had given him this one small miracle, this chance to give love where it was needed most. But peace, like the sun, never stayed for long in his life. One day, while they were gathering wood, they heard voices, men shouting, horses approaching. Lila's eyes widened with fear. Elijah's heart sank. He knew that voice. The overseer. The sound of horses carried through the trees like the memory of a nightmare. Elijah froze, the bundle of firewood tumbling from his hands. The girl looked up at him, her face pale beneath the dirt and sunlight. He could see the question in her eyes before she asked it. "Is it bad men?" She whispered. He didn't answer. He just put a finger to his lips and listened. The voices were getting closer now, 3, maybe 4 men. The overseer's voice was the loudest, sharp and cruel even from a distance. Elijah could make out laughter between words, the kind of laughter that never meant joy. He knew that sound. It was the same laughter he'd heard when men were punished for trying to run, the same that followed him in dreams long after the pain had faded. He grabbed Lila's hand. "Come now," he said softly. "We got to keep quiet." They moved through the trees, careful with every step. The ground was still soft from the storm, their footprints sinking deep. Elijah tried to lead her toward the stream that curved behind the hill, a path hidden by tall grass. But before they reached it, the sound of a whip cracked through the air like thunder. "Old man," the overseer's voice echoed through the woods. "You still breathing, I see. Thought I left you to feed the crows." Elijah's heart sank. He turned slowly, placing himself between Lila and the sound. Through the trees, the overseer appeared on horseback, 2 other men beside him. They looked rough, half-drunk, and fully dangerous. The overseer dismounted, mud splashing around his boots. "Well now," he drawled, walking closer. "Didn't reckon I'd find you hiding out here. You got some fire left after all." His eyes shifted, catching sight of Lila peeking from behind Elijah's leg. "And what's this? You stealing little girls now?" Elijah's voice was calm but steady. "She's a child. Her mama's gone. Just helping her." The overseer laughed, a sharp sound that made Lila flinch. "Helpin', huh? You always had that soft heart. Guess it's why you never made much of nothing. Maybe I'll take the girl back. Someone'll pay for her if she's strong enough." Elijah stepped forward, his eyes burning. "You ain't taking her nowhere." The men exchanged looks, smirking. The overseer tilted his head, curious. "That a threat, old man?" Elijah didn't answer with words. He reached down, picked up a branch, and stood tall, his hands trembling but sure. "Ain't no threat. Just truth." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the overseer's smile disappeared. "You forget who you talking to." He signaled to one of his men. "Grab the girl!" Lila screamed as the man lunged forward. Elijah swung the branch hard, catching the man across the face. The crack of wood-meeting bone filled the air. The man stumbled back, cursing, blood dripping from his nose. The overseer's expression twisted into rage. "You damn fool!" he shouted. He reached for the whip on his belt and snapped it in the air. The sound tore through the forest like lightning. Elijah felt the lash slice across his arm, pain burning through old skin. But he didn't move. He stood firm. "Run, Lila!" he shouted. "Go!" She hesitated for a heartbeat too long, tears streaming down her face. "But go!" She turned and bolted into the trees, small feet pounding against the wet earth. The overseer cursed and motioned for one of his men to follow. "Bring her back." Elijah swung again, blocking the man's path, striking him in the leg. The branch snapped in half. The man roared in pain and fell. The overseer raised the whip again, striking Elijah across the back. He fell to one knee, gasping, his breath sharp and broken. But still he pushed himself up. "Always was too proud for your own good," the overseer hissed. "Could have died quiet. Now look at you, fighting like you matter." Elijah wiped blood from his mouth and looked up at him. "I do matter," he said softly. "And so does she." The overseer moved closer, raising his whip for another strike. But before he could bring it down, a sharp crack echoed through the air. A rifle shot. The overseer froze. From the edge of the trees, a figure stepped out, a woman in a faded coat holding a gun steady in her hands. "That's enough," she said, her voice clear and cold. The men turned, startled. Elijah blinked in disbelief. It was one of the abolitionists he'd seen passing through the county months ago, one of those who whispered of freedom and refuge for those who'd run. Her eyes flicked to him, then to the overseer. "You best leave or I'll send another round through that fine hat of yours." The overseer hesitated, then spat into the mud. "You don't scare me, woman." "Maybe not," she said, cocking the rifle, "but I sure as hell can make you bleed." The men shifted nervously. One of them tugged at the overseer's sleeve. "Boss, we best go. Ain't worth killing for this." The overseer glared at Elijah one last time, hatred burning in his eyes. "You got lucky, old man, but luck don't last." He turned his horse and rode off, his men following close behind, disappearing into the fading light. When the sound of hooves faded, Elijah collapsed to the ground, his breath ragged. The woman ran to him, kneeling beside him. "You all right?" He nodded weakly. "The girl." She ran. The woman stood and called out, "It's safe now." A moment later, Lila appeared from the trees, eyes wide with fear and relief. She ran to Elijah, throwing her arms around him. He winced from the pain but held her close, resting his chin on her wet hair. "Told you to run," he said softly. "I did," she said between sobs, "but I came back." The woman helped Elijah to his feet. "We've got a wagon not far from here," she said. "We can take you both somewhere safe." Elijah nodded. "Ain't got much left to travel with." "You've got enough," she said. "Come on." The road they followed was long and quiet, lined with trees heavy from rain. Lila held his hand the whole way. The woman, who introduced herself as Clara, led them toward a small camp nestled by the river. There were others there, men, women, children, faces worn from running but still alive with hope. When Elijah stepped into the camp, heads turned. Clara helped him sit near the fire. Someone handed him a blanket. Another gave Lila a piece of bread. The warmth of the flames felt like a miracle after so much cold. Later that night, as stars broke through the clearing sky, Elijah sat watching the river. Lila slept beside him, her small hand curled in his coat. Clara joined him, sitting quietly for a while before she spoke. "You saved her," she said. He shook his head. "Maybe she saved me," Clara smiled. "Either way, the world's better 'cause you didn't give up." He looked at the stars, their light shimmering on the water. "Didn't have much choice," he said softly. "Ain't no storm can wash away what the Lord still got work for." Days turned into weeks. Elijah's wounds healed slowly, though his strength never fully returned. He helped where he could, teaching the younger ones how to build fires, mend tools, plant seeds when the earth thawed. Lila followed him everywhere, her laughter echoing through the camp like a song. Sometimes, when the nights were still, she would sit beside him and ask, "Do you think Mama can see us?" He would smile, eyes glinting in the firelight. "I reckon she can. Reckon Sarah can too." Then he'd tell her stories until she fell asleep, the kind that carried both pain and peace, stories that stitched the broken pieces of two lives into something whole. One morning, when the spring air was soft and full of promise, Clara came to him with news. "There's a place in the north," she said. "A town where they're taking folks in. You and Lila can start fresh there, no chains, no overseers." Elijah looked out at the horizon where the sun rose over the fields. "Ain't sure I got another journey left in me." Clara smiled gently. "Maybe not, but she does." He looked at Lila, who was chasing a butterfly near the riverbank, her laughter bright and free. He nodded slowly. "Then I'll go as far as I can." They left at dawn 2 days later. The camp gathered to see them off. Clara handed him a satchel of food, pressing his hand. "You did good, Elijah," she said. He smiled faintly. "Ain't over yet." The road stretched ahead, long and uncertain. Elijah walked slowly, the girl's hand in his. She talked about the town they were going to, about learning to read, about having her own room one day. He listened, smiling at her dreams. When they stopped by a field to rest, he sat beneath a tree, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. Lila lay beside him, humming softly. After a while, his eyes grew heavy. "Go on now," he whispered. "Keep walking when I can't." She looked at him, puzzled. "You're tired again," he smiled. "Just a little." He closed his eyes, listening to the wind through the grass, to the sound of her voice calling his name one last time. By the time Clara found them hours later, Lila was holding his hand, tears streaking her face but no fear in her eyes. "He said he'd keep watch," she whispered. And in a way, he did. They buried him beneath the oak tree, the river glistening nearby. Lila placed a small stone at the foot of the grave and whispered, "Thank you." Then she took Clara's hand, turning toward the horizon where the sky opened wide and bright. The world had taken everything from him once, but in the end Elijah had given something back, hope. And though the storm had long passed, its memory carried with it the sound of rain, washing pain into peace.